right, black and white sports supporters. Well, my goodness. USA Basketball has posted a roster for the U.S. Basketball Training Camp. Caitlin Clark is not on there. Many fans have noticed this, by the way. Angel Reese is not on here.
The roster dropped, and the sports world immediately went into a total meltdown. Caitlin Clark, the most electric name in basketball history, was nowhere to be found on the USA Basketball Training Camp list. It wasn't an oversight or a typo, it was a cold, hard rejection that sent shock waves through every corner of the league. Cheryl Reeve and the selection committee just drew a line in the sand, and the backlash is already becoming a Category 5 hurricane. Fans are demanding answers, and the silence from the top is absolutely deafening, as the Olympic dreams of a generation hang in the balance. This isn't just a roster update, it's an all-out declaration of war against the new era of the game.
Reese is not on here. Oddly enough, no fans have noticed that. Funny how that is. Paige Bueckers is on here. Now, Rhodes, does that mean Caitlin Clark's not going to make the team? I don't think that's what that means. I don't. I think, and maybe this would go for Angel too. Who the hell knows? I would think Angel has made this roster. All right.
Cheryl Reeve is officially in panic mode, whether she wants to admit it or not. By leaving Caitlin Clark off the Phoenix roster, she has invited a level of scrutiny that could dismantle the reputation of the national team. The committee is trying to play it cool, but the numbers don't lie. When you have the literal MVP and the greatest scorer to ever touch a basketball sitting at home while a training camp kicks off, you aren't building a team, you're managing a crisis. The narrative is spiraling out of control, and every move Reeve makes from here on out will be viewed through the lens of this massive, inexplicable snub. The pressure is mounting, and the cracks are starting to show.
Maybe this would go for Angel too. Who the hell knows? I would think Angel has made this roster. All right. But that line of thinking would also lead me to believe that Paige Bueckers fighting for her life right now. She's fighting for her life right now to make this roster. Let's take a look at this, folks. Guys, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. The U.S. Basketball Women's National Team announced today.
This training camp in Phoenix is set for April 1st through the 3rd, and the list of 15 players features some heavy hitters. We're talking about gold medalists like Nafisa Collier, Sabrina Ionescu, and the legendary Aya Wilson. But as the names were read off, the absence of number 22 was all anyone could talk about. How do you hold a premier event in Phoenix and exclude Caitlin Clark, the woman who has single-handedly brought millions of new eyes to the sport? It's a move that defies logic, and suggests there are deep-seated issues behind the scenes that the public is only just beginning to uncover. The decision-makers are playing with fire, and they might just get burned.
I mean, when is this? April 1 through the 3rd. More strange, scratching your head decisions made by coaches after a chaotic offseason. What are we doing exactly? Stephanie White, looking at you. So, a lot of response here. Where's Caitlin Clark? A lot of, hey, yeah. What are we doing?
But it's not just Caitlin Clark who got the cold shoulder. Angel Reese is missing from this roster as well. Though, interestingly enough, the fans haven't been quite as vocal about her exclusion. It's a strange double standard, but it highlights just how much of a lightning rod Clark has become. While Reese has her own massive following, the omission of Clark feels like a direct attack on the progress of the game. People are looking at this list and asking if the old guard is intentionally trying to keep the new superstars at arm's length. It's a polarizing moment that has split the fan base right down the middle, and the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife.
A lot of response here. Where's Caitlin Clark? A lot of, hey, yeah, what are we doing? What the F? Don't piss me off. Where the hell is Caitlin? Why ain't Caitlin gonna be there? I feel like Clark is already a lock. Where's Caitlin Clark? Damn, no CC. Boy, people saw this quick, fast, and in a hurry. Paige is there, but no Caitlin. No Caitlin Clark, no Aaliyah Boston. Aaliyah Boston.
Now, here is where the plot really thickens, and the confusion turns into genuine concern. Paige Bueckers is on the list, let that sink in for a second. While Caitlin Clark is being told to stay home, Paige is being welcomed into the fold for the Phoenix camp. This move has left experts and fans alike scratching their heads in total disbelief. Why is one college phenom getting the green light, while the other is left in the dark? It doesn't make sense on paper, and it certainly doesn't make sense when you look at the impact both have had on the court over the last year. This discrepancy is the smoking gun that points toward a much larger, and more controversial, agenda.
Caitlin Clark. No Caitlin Clark, nobody cares. Caitlin better make the final team. Shit, if she don't make the team, look out. The backlash will be gargantuan. Gargantuan. Now, here's the thing. Look, Asia's going to be on the team. Sabrina's going to be on the team. The names you know are going to be on the team, right? Caitlin was just in Puerto Rico. All these other, Kelsey Plum, and they were just in Puerto Rico. I don't think they're.
By including Paige Bueckers and excluding Caitlin Clark, the committee has effectively put Paige in a very dangerous position. She is now fighting for her life to justify her spot on a roster that many feel she shouldn't be on if Clark isn't there. It's an immense amount of pressure for a young player to carry, and it puts her right in the crosshairs of a frustrated fan base. The decision makers have essentially turned her into a shield for their own controversial choices. Instead of letting her develop naturally, they've thrust her into a situation where she has to outperform a ghost. It's a high-stakes gamble that could end up endangering her standing in the eyes of the public.
Name I just brought up. Sue Bird. Now, what is Sue Bird part of? The Yukon Mafia. That's right. The Yukon Mafia. Paige Bueckers. Now, what is she part of? The Yukon Mafia. I'm just bringing that up. Now, if you want to go real conspiracy theory, what if Caitlin Clark hasn't made this team? And what if Paige Bueckers has made this team? And look, we all know after Caitlin Clark was just the MVP, holy hell.
There is a growing theory that Paige Bueckers is actually on the cut line, fighting for one of the final spots. If she's being called back for another showing while the established veterans stay home, it suggests she hasn't fully convinced the coaches yet. But if that's the case, why isn't Caitlin Clark there to compete against her? If you want the best possible team for the Olympics, you should have the best players battling it out in the same gym. Keeping them separate feels like a calculated move to avoid a direct comparison that Clark would likely win. It's a safe play for the committee, but it's a dangerous one for the integrity of the selection process and the future of the team.
Paige Bueckers has made this team. And look, we all know after Caitlin Clark was just the MVP, holy hell. If that happens, we will go all the way back to a video I made 3 or 4 months ago where I said, beware of the Yukon agenda for Team USA. I don't think that's the case here. My gut feeling is Caitlin Clark is on this team. I would guess Angel Reese is probably on this team. All right. Don't know.
Let's talk about the Puerto Rico factor for a moment. Some defenders of the committee argue that players like Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Plum aren't at this camp because they were just in Puerto Rico for the qualifiers. But that logic falls apart the second you realize that Paige Bueckers was also in Puerto Rico. If she's returning for another camp while the others aren't, the rest excuse simply doesn't hold water. There is something else going on here, something that the coaches and directors don't want to talk about openly. It feels like a move to protect certain players, while making others jump through extra hoops just to prove they belong in the elite circle. This is where we have to address the elephant in the room, the so-called UConn Mafia. When you look at the leadership of USA basketball, the ties to the University of Connecticut are everywhere. Sue Bird is the managing director, and her influence over the roster cannot be overstated. Is it a coincidence that Paige Bueckers, the current star of the UConn program, is getting preferential treatment over the girl from Iowa? To many fans, the answer is a resounding no. The optics are terrible, and it reinforces the idea that the national team is more of a private club than a true meritocracy. It's a narrative that Cheryl Reeve is going to have to fight hard to dispel. The Sue Bird connection is the one that really has the conspiracy theorists working overtime. As a managing director, she has a massive say in the direction of the program. If there is an agenda to keep the UConn legacy alive at the expense of outside talent, this roster is exactly what that would look like. It's a tough pill for fans to swallow, especially when they see the literal MVP being sidelined. How do you justify that kind of favoritism in the modern era of sports? It feels like a relic of the past, a way of doing things that doesn't account for the massive cultural shift that Caitlin Clark has spearheaded over the last 2 seasons. The coaching staff leading this camp is another point of major contention. With Kara Lawson and Stephanie White at the helm, there's a feeling that the leadership is trying to bypass the current WNBA power structure. Why are these coaches making such scratch-your-head decisions after such a chaotic offseason? It feels like they are operating in a vacuum, completely disconnected from the reality of what the fans actually want to see on the court. Every choice made for the Phoenix camp feels like a desperate attempt to maintain control in a world that is moving faster than they can keep up with. It's a recipe for disaster, and it could lead to a massive failure. Social media has been absolutely ruthless since the announcement. The comments sections are flooded with people asking, "Where is Caitlin Clark, and is this an April Fool's joke?" The disbelief is palpable. People saw this roster quick, fast, and in a hurry, and they did not like what they saw. When the public sentiment is this overwhelmingly negative, it creates a toxic environment for everyone involved. The players who did make the team are now being overshadowed by the one who didn't. It's a PR nightmare that Cheryl Reeve and her team were clearly not prepared for, and now they are forced to deal with the fallout in real time. That we also have to consider the Aaliyah Boston situation. She missed the Puerto Rico trip, and we still don't know the full extent of the injury she sustained during her time in the unrivaled league. Her absence from this roster adds another layer of concern for the Indiana Fever and for the national team as a whole. If one of the core anchors of the future is sidelined with a mystery injury, why wouldn't you want your best healthy player, Caitlin Clark, in camp to fill that void? The lack of transparency regarding Boston's health only makes the decision to leave Clark out feel even more reckless and poorly planned by upper management. How can you possibly justify leaving the MVP off a training camp roster? It's a question that has no good answer. If this camp is meant to prepare the team for the highest level of international competition, you need your most impactful players there. Caitlin Clark isn't just a scorer, she's a floor general who changes the way the entire game is played. By denying her a spot in Phoenix, the committee is essentially saying they don't value her unique skill set or the attention she brings to the program. It's a slap in the face to a player who has done everything asked of her, and more. The April Fool's theory was a popular one early on, with fans desperately hoping this was all just a poorly timed prank. But as the dates for the camp approach, the realization is sinking in that this is the actual plan. This isn't a joke. It's a calculated move by a selection committee that seems completely out of touch with the current state of women's basketball. They are leaning into old hierarchies and internal politics at a time when they should be embracing the explosion of popularity the sport is experiencing. It's a move that feels outdated and stubborn, and it could have long-term consequences for the growth of the national team. If Caitlin Clark doesn't make the final Olympic team after being the literal MVP of the sport, the backlash will be absolutely gargantuan. We are talking about a level of fan outrage that could actually threaten the viewership and commercial success of the games themselves. People don't just watch for the gold medals anymore, they watch for the icons who have changed the culture. To ignore that reality is a form of institutional arrogance that rarely ends well. The committee thinks they are protecting the sanctity of the veteran roster, but they might actually be burning the bridge to the future. This is a high-stakes gamble with the heart of the fan base. Cheryl Reeve is the one who is going to have to answer for this when the dust settles. As the head coach, her fingerprints are all over these decisions. If her vision for the team involves excluding the most popular and productive player in the country, she is going to have a very hard time explaining that to the fans and the media. The pressure on her to deliver a gold medal is already high, but now she has to do it while carrying the weight of this controversy. If the team struggles even a little bit, the calls for her job will be loud and immediate. She has put herself in a position where anything less than perfection will be seen as a failure. There's also the question of the younger players like Rickea Jackson and Juju Watkins, who did make the cut. Why are they being fast-tracked while Caitlin Clark is being told to wait her turn? It creates an odd dynamic within the camp, where some young stars are favored over others for reasons that aren't entirely clear. Is it about fit, or is it about who is willing to play the game the way the old guard wants it played? By picking and choosing which young stars to elevate, the committee is creating a fragmented locker room before the season even begins. It's a dangerous way to build a team culture, especially when so much is on the line. The disrespect toward Caitlin Clark's commitment has even reached the point where some trolls are making personal attacks, suggesting she's too busy with her personal life to care about the national team. It's a disgusting narrative that distracts from the real issue, her undeniable talent being ignored by the people in charge. Clark has proven time and again that she is a professional who puts the work in, and to suggest otherwise is just a way to deflect from the committee's questionable choices. The fact that these comments are even gaining traction shows how polarized the conversation has become. It's no longer just about basketball, it's about a clash of cultures. When you look at locks like Aya Wilson and Sabrina Ionescu, you see the standard that has been set for this team. They are the gold standard. But Caitlin Clark has already met and exceeded that standard in terms of production and impact. If they are the benchmark, then Clark belongs on that court with them. Leaving her out suggests there is a personal or political barrier that she hasn't been able to cross yet. It's a gatekeeping mentality that is holding the sport back. If the best players aren't on the court together, then the national team label starts to lose its meaning. The Phoenix camp is only 72 hours long, but those 3 days will determine the trajectory of USA basketball for the next 4 years. In that short window, the coaches will make decisions that will echo through the Olympics and beyond. Who stays and who goes will send a clear message about what the program values. If they stick with the status quo and keep Caitlin Clark on the outside looking in, they are essentially closing the door on the most exciting chapter in the history of the game. It's a pivot point for the sport, and the world is watching to see which way the committee leans when the pressure is at its peak. Paige Bueckers is fighting for her spot, but the reputational risk she's facing is massive. If she makes the team over Caitlin Clark, she will be the face of a controversy she didn't create. The danger here isn't about her skills, it's about the impossible situation she's been placed in by leadership. She should be celebrated for her talent, but instead, she's being used as a pawn in a larger game of power and influence. It's unfair to her, and unfair to the fans who want to see both of these stars succeed on their own merits. At the end of the day, USA basketball is playing a very dangerous game with the future of the sport. You cannot ignore a generational talent like Caitlin Clark and expect the world to just nod and move on. Whether it's a UConn agenda, a coaching panic, or just a massive lapse in judgment, the result is the same, a program that feels disconnected from its audience.